Hi, LK. Welcome to the IPRA Rec Room podcast. So excited to have you on.
Excited to be here. Always great to catch up with old friends.
Yes. I mean, for those who don't know, LK was an advisor for me and taught a bunch of my classes while I was at the University of Illinois. So that's where we first met. So it's very, very fun to be able to talk with you again.
That was just a few years ago.
Yeah, it was like last year, I think, right? It's crazy how fast time has flown. So, LK, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody? Just give us a quick backstory on who you are and what you do.
Okay. How far back do you want me to go?
Go as far back as you'd like.
Okay. So I was born, I'm just kidding. LoriKay Paden. My friends call me LK Paden. And I got into Parks and Recreation, went to Illinois State University. And I started as an elementary ed major, and then I was a music major, and I was working at Campus Rec. And Diane Dahlman was the director of Campus Rec, opened my eyes to the world of recreation because I had an intro to rec class, and the rest was history. And fell in love with recreation and never turned back. Always had a love for fitness too. So I was like between those two, majors. Do I do fitness or do I do recreation admin? And I chose recreation admin because I knew I could teach myself and get all the other certifications. I wanted that management background. So ISU bachelor's, master's degree, and then I landed my first big girl job at the Round Lake Area Park District, and I worked there. I excuse all my years because I can't remember. It's been so long. I would think I was almost like 3.5, 4 years. My husband was from St. Joseph, Champaign, Urbana area, so started having kids. So we went back to that area. And in college, I'd done an internship at Urbana Park District too, with Robin Hall and Dan Gibble. Love all them.
Great place to do an internship.
Yeah, that was where my foundation really happened. So then got a job at the Urbana Park District, and I worked there for 9 years. And then I made a really stupid move, and I went and I worked at a private gym, which shall remain nameless, for about 2 years while I was teaching at the U of I. That I kept my hands. So that's when I started teaching at the U of I, teaching facility management. Programming was my favorite, and everybody else's in the whole world. And like
Right.
intro to leisure classes and those types of things.
If you don't mind me asking before you keep going, why do you think it was a stupid move?
Because this place was, we transform lives, and they really didn't. It was always about the bottom line, where
Sales pitch.
yeah, and when I worked in public parks and rec, and where I am currently, like, even though that there's tax dollars and grant dollars and those types of things, I've always operated as a business, regardless of where those funds were coming from. So I always ran a really tight ship, but theirs was so reliant on that, and it wasn't as authentic, and it wasn't about the community. I don't know if you remember we were in college, but I was like, go out there, make good choices, be a life changer and a memory maker. Like, those were just, and I still live by that. And I didn't feel like we weren't transforming lives. So I want to be in an area where you can be transformational. Opportunity came open where I was working with the Office of Recreation and Park Resources at the U of I. And then I started, which is the outreach arm for the University of Illinois. So I had the great opportunity of traveling the state, training park and rec professionals on customer service, evaluation, programming, your gym layout, all those fun things, which I still love to do. Like, that's where my heart is. It's just like firing up people to do a great job. And then, and then in May of 2016, my husband took a job in North Carolina. So that was in December. So I stayed till May, and finished out the semester, and we packed up and we went to Asheville, North Carolina.
You've been like well-traveled throughout your career.
Well-traveled, yeah. But I mean, I'd stayed there. It was funny because I had never been like one to change jobs. So then when we got to Asheville, the park and rec system, just nothing compares to Illinois Parks and Recreation. Like, nothing. Like, top of the line. So I go to Asheville, and they have like a park and recs department, and then they have a county park and rec, and I'm trying to get information, no jobs available. I did apply for one job, which I think I at least should have got an interview. They didn't even respond to me. And I was just like,
really?
Like, it was the weirdest thing, but it was very, should we say political? Like, the gal got that job grew up there, who knew someone, and then she didn't even last very long. And so right now there's a retired principal leading a county park department, which I'm just like,
He has no experience.
great guy. So, but anyway, I had walked into the YMCA and I walked in, I was like, I just want to teach some classes here. So we granted, remember, no kids, no dog, anything. And I told my husband I want to be a stay-at-home mom, because when you live in Asheville, you just want to stay at home and not have to work. And he's like, we don't even have a dog. You're not staying home. Walked into the Y, and I was like, wow, this is beautiful. I just want to teach classes here. So I was teaching some fitness classes. And within a month, I was their fitness coordinator. And then the fitness director went on maternity leave. So I was interim fitness director. She didn't come back. So then I was the fitness director. So long story short, in 8 years there, I had 7 promotions. So I went from fitness director to a fitness director over 2 branches to executive director. And like, I really struggled at first because my heart is Parks and Rec. My heart is Illinois Parks and Rec. I mean, that's all I ever knew. Like, going back to conferences last January was like putting on a comfy pair of shoes to see all my friends. Like, when we started there, we didn't have kids. We weren't married. And now I'm going to be a grandma. But so, the thing that I do like about the YMCA is that it took my love for community and really matched it with a bigger charitable impact. Like the YMCA that I'm at, we gave away $4 million in scholarships and programming this year. So the Parks and Rec will always have my heart, but this is just a different part of my heart where it's kind of cool. It took my love for Parks and Recreation, my love for community, and then married it to something charitable, which when I started, I'm like, I can't raise money. I don't know how to raise money.
Yeah.
And it's been a blessing. Like, the money just comes as we tell the story.
That's awesome. Like the Y, it definitely seems like an organization that's, I mean, it's not like a public Parks and Recreation facility, but I mean, it, in terms of like missions, very similar, I feel like.
Very similar. Well, I was kind of like, when I first started, I'm like, because it was a flagship Y where I was working, teaching classes. I'm like, they're trying to be a park district in here. Like, I was like really offended, but so then what I did when I became executive director, I started partnering with the park and rec departments out there, because it's like, we all can't do everything. So how can we like level the playing field? Like, what are your niches? What are you really good at? And it's like, it was always a struggle because Parks and Rec charges a lot less than the YMCA. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, that's great. The parks are capitalizing on this. Where do you need support? And so coming in as a leader that way, they're just like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, we're not here to compete. I call it collaboration, right?
That's a good way to put it.
Collaboration. Like, how can we collaborate, but compete nicely? Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on, like, how do you, I guess, compare and contrast what you've seen within Illinois and what you've seen outside of Illinois? I know many of us who work in Illinois, this is all we know. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I know for me personally, I always thought everywhere is like this. Like, what's
Yeah.
your experience been?
It's just not like that. People in Delaware and I'm in Delaware right now. People in Delaware and North Carolina, they didn't even know what a park district is. Like, they don't even know. So it's like always having to explain it. In Maryland, they have a huge county park system. So there's no park districts out here, to my knowledge. So that's really different. I will tell you that when I jumped into the Y, I learned so much about how we could do things different in Parks and Rec, while in the same way bringing in my perspective to the Y, like how they need to do something different. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just like on systems and processes and that type of thing. So that's why I love coming back to IPRA and being like, have we ever tried this?
Yeah.
And then sitting in large leadership meetings here being like, have you ever tried this? So, yeah.
Right. I think it's super useful, especially talking with people who are in not necessarily Parks and Rec, but adjacent fields, because there might be something that we do really well that they could utilize. There might be something that they're doing like really well. And then, like, okay, the exchange of ideas is always great, I feel like.
And it's so transferable. I used to teach all that all the time, like those transferable skills.
Yeah. I still remember my first ever event that I put on was in your class.
Yeah. People still tell me that. It melts my heart.
It was great. I mean, it was perfect because, like, my first job right out of the gate was as a special events supervisor. So I was like, well prepared.
You were all equipped up, even though some of y'all cried during that. I'm just kidding.
There were times definitely overwhelmed. I won't. It was hard. Well, I mean, like you have always had such an amazing energy about you, and you're always like very positive and like so. It was for me. I didn't have that. I learned to develop that later on, and so
Yeah,
I
I
could see where
understand
you were
that.
coming from. But like
Yeah,
at that time, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
yeah. No, that's great.
How do you think you've seen the field evolve over your years of experience? And like maybe even coming at this as like a woman in Parks and Rec, how do you think attitudes have changed over the years from when you first started to now, or have things been consistent? Like, what have your observations?
I mean, I've been really impressed with how our field has stayed up with the times and the changes. I was so proud watching from afar how all my colleagues running park districts and park departments like did such a great job during COVID. You know what I mean? Like it was one of the hardest times in all of our careers, but watching everyone walk through that, taking care of their staff, taking care of their communities, like it it made my heart smile, and I hated being far away, and I have several friends that I would jump on calls with and have conversations about um how they were doing and how they were taking care and like what those challenges and struggles were. So I was so impressed with the way our field handled that and caring for people in their community. I appreciate how in our industry we're just staying up with the time. We're not sitting back and waiting for the latest and greatest to pass us up. We're part of that latest and greatest in regards to technology and programming and equipment, and really trying to meet our communities where we are.
Yeah, I tell people all the time. I'm like, I think COVID, although I mean, it was terrible, right? It was absolutely terrible. I think for what it did to the field during that time, I mean, I think the amount of change that we saw come out of it that was really good, and we saw a bunch of places add new ways to reach out to their communities. I think that was just amazing.
Yeah.
It challenged all of us, but we came out better because of it, I think.
Yeah. That was something cool too. I can't remember which. I was on some call. I was on a call with some park and rec people. It was all about like group exercise and how. So I was on a committee through YUSA on how
Mhm.
we were going virtual and doing all that. And I can't remember what the context was, but I got into a call with some Illinois park and rec folks about how they were doing it. It was great to like share those, that information back and forth, so we could all be providing that service for our quality. As far as like women, remember, I was trying to think, my first conference was in, I think, like 91 or 92, college student. And just so you know, I did not miss a conference from that year all the way to COVID. So like I went
Really?
to like, yeah, yeah, I was like I think it was 1990 was our first conference because I was in grad school. Didn't miss one till 2020. Like not one. Watching that, growing up in that where it was mostly men directors, men superintendents, and like that is just totally, I just feel like it is definitely a place where we're just seeking strong leaders and open to putting the best in the seat, whether they're male, female, white, black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I found was crazy was I had just found out that the first female chair of IPRA wasn't into the mid 1980s,
Yeah.
and it had been around for IPRA's been around for a very long time. Well, like
Yeah.
I think 19, I want to say. Now this is gonna be bad if I get this wrong.
Yeah, and it's recorded too. Well, it's so funny because I was on the board when I was in grad school. I was like the student rep, and then graduated, and then not too long after, I don't even know what, maybe like in 2000, I was on the board for a very long time because IPRA had a little snafu in 2008-ish, and we just kept the same board. So I was on the board for a long time.
Mhm.
You should find out how long that was. I kind of blocked that out. Um, but
I'm sure I could find it somewhere in the
so I
archives.
was the Central Illinois rep,
Mhm.
and I was working at the U of I at the time. So I can't remember the timing on it, but so they just asked us to stay on, stay on, stay on. But in 2011, I was the chair of the board,
Mhm.
and um I was the first chair of the board that was not an executive director.
Really?
Yeah, like it was, and that was kind of and that was kind of a That was a tough barrier to overcome because there was so much like, executive directors take that role. But yeah, so I was working at U of I. I was the advisor and
And to be able to lead it like IPRA coming out of that really tough period, that must have been a challenge, I'm sure. On top of like having to deal with probably those preconceived notions of like, oh, you're not an executive director
yeah.
at the chair, right?
Well, I'll tell you, Ron Selsky, Carrie Fullerton, like I
Mhm.
was us three in that order, and just that board was amazing back then. And yeah, and look where we are now. Like just sometimes you
Yeah,
have to go through really hard things to clean up and then make it even better. And that's what we did with the board and the leadership that stepped in after that.
well, we thank you for that because we're still reaping the rewards from it.
Yeah, conference was great this year. It was so great to see the flourishing.
Yeah, I love conference. I've loved it ever since I went to my first one. I think it was 2018 because I didn't go straight into Parks and Rec right out of school. I went in kind of a weird. I wanted to be a sports
I
person.
know.
90% of
Sport guy.
yeah.
That was another thing I told you in advising. So, like, you know what sports is, right?
Yes. Yep. And then I did it, and I was like, she was right the whole time. Like, I don't know why I didn't listen, but there I
Yeah, I
was.
told you so.
No, you definitely told me so. And I was like, and like, it was something, and that's what I was like. I wish I was more appreciative in the time of the wisdom that you were giving me. But it was like years later, I'm like looking back, I'm like, oh man, I'm like, every step of the way, like 100% right.
Yeah, that's one thing about me. I never sugarcoat anything. People either love it or hate it. But like, even just from advising to teaching to where I sit right now, what you see
Yeah.
is what you get. And I think that's just, you have to be authentic and lead with integrity, no matter what, all the time.
100%. I think that's one thing I definitely took away from that too. Was like I like we were talking earlier. I remember you came into the class and you were. I might be paraphrasing because it's been a while, but
Yeah.
you were like, if you're here to do a 9 to 5, clock in, clock out, Monday through Friday, like you might as well find another major right now. And this was I literally just transferred into RST. I was like, oh boy, like this is starting off hot. But I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, it's not for somebody you have to be really invested in it. You have to have it as part of you. Like Parks and Rec isn't a job. It's part of who you are as a person.
And it's your family. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. And so that has stuck with me throughout my entire career. And it didn't hit me like right then in that moment, I guess, but like 5 years in, I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, 100%. I'm like, that was spot on. And it might not be what people want to hear at that time, right? That was tough to
Exactly.
hear for a lot of people, I think. But
Yes, definitely. I love the not 9 to 5. I don't think I could do it. Like you know what I mean? I think and as you get older and mature, like I
Mhm.
am, like young professionals will struggle with that balance. But I think
Mhm.
as, it's really important to set those boundaries and those guardrails and find how you can work in our field and still enjoy life. Cause I always, say when someone's like, I need perfect balance. Well, you're never going to have balance. Sometimes work's going to win and sometimes family's going to win. And you gotta find that happy place and just, you gotta take care of you in order to do a great job.
That's great because that was my next question would be like what advice would you give a younger you like maybe just starting out in the field like from your wisdom now what would you say?
Like just starting out, I was a sponge. So like I would continue to like just like learn and make those connections. Like relationships in the field and in your community are so valuable. I don't know if you remember this, but I always would say every interaction is a potential job interview. Like you have no idea who could be your next boss or your next big donor or whatever that is. So like always like really like I would even embrace that more as a young professional and get more involved in the community versus like just so involved in the operations. And then I think just the whole learning how to say yes and how to say no while
Mhm.
still growing and being a productive and valued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's really really good advice because I think that's one thing I struggled with really early on is when to say yes, when to say no, and trying to find that balance because like you want to learn everything, you want to do your best, you want to put your best foot forward, but you also can't be burning yourself out, right?
Right. I think you can't be a people pleaser. Like you have to look at your job And then, but I think we still need to strive to go above and beyond. Like,
Absolutely.
I struggle with some of the young professionals coming in, and we don't have that work ethic or that, fire. Like, where is that? So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
I
I'm
mean,
looking for. I can train someone how to do anything behind the scenes, but I can't train someone to be happy, to be positive, to have good work ethic. Like, I'm going to look at that
right.
first.
Right. And that's like, I'm glad you brought that up too, because when I was at Clarendon Hills, when I left, were looking for somebody else, right? And I was like, I've got this person. They're fantastic. Like, they've been a camp director, like assistant director for years. I'm like, incredible work ethic, very friendly, great talking with parents and all that stuff. But they didn't have a Parks and Rec degree. But I was like, we can teach them
Yeah.
that part. Like, they have all of the intangibles. Like, that's everything you want in somebody. And I mean, I think, if my personal approach too is like, you can kind of train the other stuff. Like, it's that stuff that really, I think, really counts, right?
Yeah.
But
But I will tell you, like, going back to like there's not a lot of people in YMCA's that have had like a rec degree. And the things like at like even just at U of I or at Illinois State, like those programming classes, those hands-on practical application classes, like writing a goal, like
right,
those things are important.
they
And so
are.
like that foundation, yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not bad mouthing the
No,
Parks
I'm
and Rec
not either, but
degree.
I was just thinking, or like you get people that come up who don't have a college degree at all. And I've put some people in some leadership roles, but I think college in general, no matter the major,
Mm.
teaches critical thinking skills. And so if you not that I'm not like I have some amazing people that work their ways up through hard knocks, but like there's just a difference in those critical thinking skills and working with people in a different way. All those darn group projects, right?
Oh my gosh, I went on a rant about group projects the other day to my wife. I'm like, I couldn't. There were some that were rough
Yeah.
because again, it comes back to work ethic. Some people are like, let's get this done. Let's do great work. And other people are like, I'm going to show up or not show up.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's super. I think combining those, if you find somebody with a work ethic and that background, that's ideal, right? Like,
Golden.
yeah. And it's hard to find sometimes, but like, if you can find it, I think like there's certain people within the field, like I know today, and it's like you said, every interaction's like a potential interview.
Yeah.
Like, everybody, I think, who's watching or listening to this can think of some people that they know, and they're like, yeah, that person, they're great. Like, they're going to be like, go to the top, right?
Mhm.
Because they're super personable, great work ethic, and they're out there.
Yeah, I love that.
What would you say is like one moment, like, I don't know, that you look back on the fondest over your career, like in the field?
Well, I'll tell you for IPRA, like just not working in the field, but for IPRA, like being chair and like leading and talking to the entire luncheon banquet, like talking on a teleprompter and firing people up, that was a highlight for me. Like I would always tease my husband, I just want to, give speeches with a teleprompter. And he's like, well, that would be being a president. I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. But anyway, I love that and that opportunity with IPRA and just leading people in that way. That was fun. Fondest memories. So teaching at the University of Illinois was so impactful because like that was something that is still going on today. Back to the RST social just this January, students from 15 years ago saying stuff like you, like, still remember your programming class. I do this. I still get emails and Facebook notices from students from, 10 years ago asking for reference letters, connecting. Right now I'm in Delaware. Kimberly Madden, her family lives here. So we went and we had lunch. Like those are relationships that I will cherish for my entire life. And I love like watching past students and now they're getting married and having babies and like all the things. I'm like, how is this happening? So that like, and like graduation, like watching people, like there's just so much joy in that. And that's been huge. Like from helping people in the hardest times and then watching them like just flourish has been amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can't even imagine like
Yeah.
it's I mean it's cool for me like just going through things like with people I knew I was in the program with and I'm like, "Oh man, did you see like so and so is like now doing this at this
Yeah.
park district?" I'm like, "That's a fun feeling." And like for you, I mean, you taught us. So like that's got to be incredibly rewarding, I feel like.
So fun, so fun. So I love that. And then like even just watching all the students like take these events that they didn't know how they're gonna do from nothing and like putting on these huge events that those were highlights for me at Urbana Park District. Like I loved, we opened a new building. Like that gave me so much experience that I've used forever under leadership of Robin Hall and Dan Gibble. And then like our huge summer events like Sound of Summer and having thousands of people in the park. Like I just love gathering. I love to see people happy. And those are like my fondest moments. Like our hard work, what's the fruit of that? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So now that we've talked a little bit about the past, let's talk a little bit about the future of Parks and Recreation. What do you think is like, where do you see the field headed? What do you think is maybe like the biggest obstacle to overcome right now? And like, how do you see the field moving forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. I see the field moving forward by staying current, staying up with the times, like really being active, like, protecting our parks and let's just say favorable political conditions, like really fighting for what we believe. And I've always seen that. And I think it's going to be very important for us in the field to remain current and like we can't keep doing things the old way, like being willing to step out on a ledge, like with our programming, maybe how we're offering things, when we're offering things, what are our buildings looking like as we're building new buildings? Do we need these huge buildings or are people, reflecting more on the outdoors? So I think just being really conscious of where we are and what we're doing in relation to what our community members want. I feel one of the biggest obstacles, and it kind of hurts my heart, is that kind of we're talking about earlier, but the park and rec professional and educational uh institutions, like
Right.
that we're dwindling. Like
Yeah.
what can we do? And this has been ever since I was an advisor. I remember like we need to get the middle schools, we need to get the high schools. Like people still don't know that you can have an incredible career in parks and recreation and what that looks like. So I feel like there needs to be some work done in our communities, in our state, meaning Illinois, in the state. I think it's everywhere because there's I don't know in Delaware of any park and rec programs, to be honest. So I think that that's a big obstacle because I don't want to keep losing. I don't want to lose the quality and the value of what it really takes to be a park and rec professional. I can't stand when
Right.
someone walks in like, let's do an event next month. I'm like, what'd you say?
Yeah. No, I like, and I know I think it's a hot topic right across the field. It has been for years. Is how do we get new people in? And it seems to be like everybody you talk to, how they discovered Parks and Rec is through. Well, I did something like it was a discovery much later on. Like nobody was like in fifth grade going, "Hey, that I want to be a park district executive director or something like that," right? And so I know NRPA started launching a campaign this year. I know we're working on one that we're launching as well. I guess it's going to be an interesting process in seeing what the big road bump is. Like, could it part of it be cyclical with what's going on economically? Like, is it people the private sector is too competitive? Like, is there ways that maybe Parks and Rec can evolve a little bit to try and match a little bit of what the private? I mean, I don't think there's ever going to be a way where we can be 1-to-1 equivalent to the private sector, just because of the structure.
Yeah. And
But
like the purple people.
yeah, it's going to be tough. But I mean, like from people like you and everybody else who's been in the field, the amount of, I think, selling the how rewarding it truly is and how close knit this community uh,
Amazing.
is crazy. I don't think there's anything like it.
No, there's not.
All right. So that brings us to the end of our interview. Is there anything you would like to, shout out or maybe close out on?
I've been giving little shout outs along the way, but just like, doing life growing up through Parks and Rec with, my colleagues from like, we graduated college together. And like, I just remember like our first conference, through seeing people now. It's always been a place, even though I've been out of Illinois now, I can't even believe it. I mean, 10, 12 years already, almost 12 years. Like, you would never know that. Like, I can call a colleague, reach out, to a friend, and we're still there supporting each other, helping each other, checking in with each other. And I'm just so thankful for the opportunities. And I wouldn't have changed anything about like my career trajectory through Illinois. I mean, it was awesome. It was one of the hardest things in my whole life to leave Illinois. But, God's got plans for us, and people in Asheville and now in Delaware need a little LK dazzle.
For sure. You can say you're across the United States at this point.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come speak with me and sharing all of your wisdom with the IPRA membership at large. It's always wonderful to talk to you, LK, and I appreciate you again having you on.
Thanks for having me. Great to catch up.
Yes.
And make sure you make good choices.
Yes, always make good choices.
And be a life changer and a memory maker.
Well, on those words, we're signing off for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.